can dress this up depending on what you're wearing. And the dress I had on is simply just really a basic sleeveless t-shirt dress. That's all there is to it. But you can wear jeans. These aren't jeans, but you know, it just gives you an idea. Long pants. I put on a long sleeve t-shirt because it's chilly today, but it's still a lightweight tee, just gives a little extra something. I have the collar turned up instead of folded down, so if you like that look, make it a little more casual. I changed up the earrings for a little bit of just kind of that more, you know, relaxed, almost a little bohemian vibe to it. Very casual. Okay. Ready to spread my wings. Well, hello everyone. It's me, Helene, with Cabin Fever Crochet. The long-awaited, almost invisible Cardi-Shrug that I have been talking about, and I do hope it's worth the wait and you will enjoy making it and wearing it. So yes, this is a creation of my own design, and so you can wear it a couple of different ways as shown in the video. And so I just want to go over a couple of things. I had some difficulty with how I filmed and then the editing. So you'll notice that the lighting occasionally changes. It just varied on the different times of the day and the lighting that we have here. And the audio changes at times also, depending on, I changed the rooms too that I was filming in, so there might be a little bit more echoing, and a couple times I forgot to plug in my external mic, which I haven't done now, so I hope that you can hear me okay. I think I'm close enough to the camera, I hope so. And I tell you, my shoulder still, majority of it is still in view, but it's not really in the way, it's just still in view. Woo, it's chilly today. It is 48 degrees in May. It's like fall weather, or you know, very, very early spring, but it'll start warming up again, so that's okay. And it's very breezy, as you can hear the wind chimes. So there are a couple of segments here and there that when I'm doing the tutorial I'm a little bit out of frame, but I believe it's well explained, and then as I carry on and continue to show you, then you'll be able to see what I'm doing, because I go on and repeat a little bit, and it's really easy and straightforward, but for those that are new, I'd like to do a little bit extra and not just rush through it, to make sure that you understand what we're doing and why. I'm going to help you follow along, so you'll be able to see that, maybe not at the very beginning of that segment, but you know, a few stitches down the line. Now, as you can see, mine is very oversized, and we'll explain about the sizing and how to measure, and they're all just a framework. It's not a fitted type of garment, as you can see, and yours doesn't have to be this big and oversized. If you don't want this so big and loose, as I explained, like with mine, where I measured from wingspan to wingspan, I did a couple of inches below my wrist, so that's what made this so big and oversized and almost a little more shawl-like, and that's why I'm calling it like a Cardi-Shrug, because the side seams, and then there are armholes too. But if you want yours shorter, it's super easy to make it shorter, and if you don't want it as big, then you just start your chain. Like here's my elbow. You could go somewhere in between the wrist and the elbow to split the difference, or if you want it more of a traditional shrug where it doesn't come together as much in the center, and this doesn't meet all the way, but it's more than where a traditional shrug tends to be more closer to the shoulder and under the arm, then you would do your chain closer to your elbow. So So just to give you a range, and of course the shorter it is in the length from top to bottom, and also the width, then the less yarn you are going to need, and you would need less yarn than the recommended amount that I have given. So just going to take all those things into consideration. And the other thing too is this is an easy, a straightforward pattern that if you don't want a Cardi-Shrug, you could certainly make this into a long rectangle wrap instead. And what I would suggest with that, which I didn't mention in the video for the work, is that you could do this portion all the way around along the sides, top and bottom, or if you wanted to, say, do this border along the top and the bottom, and the border that we're doing around the arm portion just along the edges. That might look nice too, or you could do fringe along the sides if you want. So it's pretty versatile in that way. I didn't make one up to show you, but I hope that my explanation of it would be you know, like easy enough to where you can figure that out, because you're just working with a long rectangle. So I spent so much time on this. I didn't want to spend, you know, another whatever how many days or another week, or depending on my schedule in life, or a couple weeks to get that up. So I'll leave that up to you, but it is an option because I have some other things already in the works that I would really like to move on to and share with you. So I just want to give a little intro on what's what with that to hopefully, you know, better explain everything. Okay, we'll get right into the tutorial and let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks, everybody. Let's go over our supplies first, I guess, and then the yarn. So, of course, you will need a hook size, and I do recommend, if you have the next hook size up, to use that for the chain. You don't, you know, want the chain too tight, too loose and sloppy. If it's too tight, your work's going to bunch up. If it's too loose, the stitches will be sloppy. So if you tend to be more of a tight crocheter, then go up a hook size. If you don't have the next hook size, you just want to work with with what you have, then stick with the same hook size. Just go a little bit looser for the chain, but make sure that your tension is even and that it is not too loose. And then we're going to talk about sizing too, and the couple different options. So we'll get all that out of the way so you know what we're working with, know what you're dealing with. But, you know, all the usual tools, all the usual suspects. Need a good pair of nice sharp snips, a large eye blunt tip yarn needle at the end for sewing in our ends, and you will need some stitch markers, and that's going to be for the finishing work when we do our armholes and do the border or the trim. So 3 will work if you have 3, because we'll be taking out the 2 arm pieces at the end, so you can reuse those. But ideally, if you have 5 stitch markers, then, sorry, that's not in view, then, you know, go with your 5. It just to have them there. Okay, and also a measuring tape will be very handy, and it will be very good for you to have a piece of paper, notepad or something, and a pen, something to write with, so you can take notes if you like as we go along, just maybe working the 2 ends and turning. It's just a 2-row repeat. It's very easy. 2-row repeat after we do our first 2 setup rows, but just to help you remember maybe how we do our turning chains and that type of thing, and then also to write down your numbers so that if this is a pattern you like, you want to remake it at some point, you already have that written down and you know just where to go with it. Okay, so as far as yarn goes, you can use any type of yarn that you like. I'm working with a really pretty basic number 3 weight. As you know, the weights can vary from yarn to yarn. brand to brand. So I think this is pretty standard, but you could go with a lighter weight number 4, or even go down to a finer weight yarn, but just keep in mind, the finer the weight, the smaller the hook, the more stitches it's going to take, but that is entirely up to you. I worked this piece in the Bernat Softy Baby Cotton yarn. It's 60% cotton, 40% acrylic, and I got this at Joann, and it's really pretty soft. It's not like super plush, so like just say like some acrylics can be, or very fine Pima or combed cotton, and yes, there are variations within all fibers as well, but I like the breathability, and I do prefer natural fibers, but I'm not opposed to working with others. It just depends on what it is. And this is something I had and I've been wanting to use up for a while. I thought, well, I had a fair amount of it, great stash buster. So this is a 4.2 ounce, pretty good size skein, 120 grams. You get 254 yards, 232 meters per. This is, the colorway is Rainstorm Variegated. I used 3 full skeins, 762 yards of it. And I have just a little bit left to sew in my ends, and then I needed some for the trim. Now this is, and so I'm going to be using this feather gray. I thought that would work to do a nice border with that. I don't know at this point how much this is going to take, but as far as sizes go, it's going to depend on your size and the length and the width that you want it to be. So we're going to go over that right now, and that's going to help explain with the yardage. So for mine, I wanted something to fit a little bit more cardigan-like. Now it doesn't meet completely. The wider that you make your piece, the more it's going to come together in front, the longer the arms are going to be. So on this piece, what I did was I did my long chain, like 1.5 inches below my wrists, and I pulled my arms out straight, kind of like my hands, you know, wingtip to wingtip. Pulled them out straight, and I stretched my chain to that length. The arms are more of like a bracelet length, where a 3/4 sleeve is approximately halfway between the elbow and the wrist. Bracelet length is about halfway between 3/4 and the wrist, and it's called bracelet length because that way if you're wearing some jewelry you can still see your bracelet. So you can make this as long in the arms as you like. If you want it something shorter and that doesn't come in as close to, there we go, as close to the center of the body, then you just don't make your chain quite as long. So the shorter it is, the closer it's going to resemble a standard shrug, where it curves more on away from the center of the chest and closer to your shoulders. And then if you want to create it that way, it's up to you, but then again your sleeves are going to be shorter. But if you want that type of shrug, I would say that it, at least have the length go to your elbows. Measure, just say, instead of coming all the way down to your wrists or below your wrists, go a little bit higher up. Now if you want to make this into just a rectangle wrap shawl type of thing, you're more than welcome to do that, and you can still add the border on if you like. And so you would just make a long chain and again wrap that around your back around your shoulders, come across your arms to the front, and see where that drapes, because you have to have enough enough length to go around your body, and depending on how long you like it to drape in front, you can just go with that. And on this, you can make it any length down your back from top to bottom as you want. You just keep working rows, because we are working length. Our chain is going to be lengthwise, so your work is going to grow top to bottom, so you can make it however comfortable that is for you. Okay, so as far as sizing and yarn goes, but I created this to be a little looser flowing and to fit more of a range of sizes. So 762 yards plus an extra skein for the trim. So I would say of these, so just add another, what, 254 yards to the 762. That's a little over 1,000 yards altogether. It's similar to if you're doing a larger size shawl or making a sweater, very similar in a way to that. Here are a few others I think would work up quite lovely if you like the acrylics. The Premier Everyday Yarns by Deborah Norville. This is the baby weight, number 3 weight. It's an anti-pilling. It's again by Premier Yarns, and you get DK light number 3, 308 yards in this 4 ounce. So it's interesting, you know, they're both the number 3 lightweight. This is 4.2 ounces, but yet it has 62 less yards than this one. So this is just giving you a little bit of a framework. You know, it's always better to have a little extra than not enough, but this is extremely soft. It'll have really, really nice drape to it. Here's another Premier, their DK Colors yarn, another anti-pilling. These are in the self-striping cakes. This is so soft and lovely. I really enjoy working with this yarn as well. And 5 ounce cakes, and this one is purple. I would call it more of a lavender color. And this is Peach Pie. I was going to say peach cobbler. This is called Peach Pie. And you get 383 yards, 5 ounces, 140 grams. So the really, really nice size cakes on these. So you could always get if you just want to buy 2 and then buy another similar type of yarn in a solid to do your border. That would probably work. And as far as hook sizes go, if you want something more lacy, drapey, and flowy, go up a hook size or even 2 depending on the type of yarn. Now a lot of the cottons, and this particularly on this Bernat, this cotton acrylic blend, it has more texture to it, so it can handle larger sizes, and it calls for a G hook. I went up to an I hook, a USI, or a 5.5 millimeter. So that's going to be your choice, your call. You can always do a small swatch. See what the texture, the stitch definition, how open, how tight it is. So once you determine that and you have your chain, you single crochet into the second chain from the hook, not counting the loop on your hook. 1, 2. You're going to chain 5. Skip 3 chains and don't count that stitch you just worked out of, so the one next to it, the 3, 1, 2, 3, single crochet into the next. That's all you're going to do all the way across. Chain 5, skip the next 3 chains, single crochet into the next, chain 5, skip the next 3 chains, single crochet into the next. So easy, right? Okay, keep going. Skip the next 3, single crochet in the next, go all the way to the end, and then I'm going to just, I want to tell you though, as far as what we're going to do is we're going to be making on the next row, and this is important, we're going to be doing our shell clusters in every other single crochet all the way across. So when you do these series of chain 5, single crochet, chain 5, when you finish up, go to the end and count from the beginning here. You're going to have 1 shell cluster in every other. So count every other of these single crochets all the way across and make sure you have an uneven number. So because I'm doing a small swatch here, I'll probably have 5. But on the actual work, I had 19. I did 100 on mine. I did 160 stitches and 19 of these shells. Because what's going to happen is, it's going to give us a really good center point in the back and create a nice balance with an even number of stitches on either side of the center. It's going to help give a lot of balance to the work, and also add a collar, those types of things. And I'll explain that more as we get into that part of it. So go ahead and finish your rows and finish this row, and I'll just go ahead and do the rest. And that's another reason to have extra chains, because if you get to the end and you're at even numbers and you don't want to pull out the repeat back to shorten it, and you would rather add a little bit of length to it by having some extra stitches, you can do that in order to wind up with your odd number. So I will count mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, and single crochet, and look at that. See, I thought my count was right. I have 1 left over, so I'm glad I added. Thought I had more extras on there than I did. Okay, and this is supposed to, you're supposed to get this little loop look going here, just like that, because we're adding more chains than what we are skipping. You're skipping 3, but you're adding in 5, creating these loops, which is going to give us a pretty little lattice effect. Okay, so now we are going to chain 6, and we're beginning row 2, so you'll be we're going to be repeating rows 2 and 3. Chain 6 and turn your work. And when you turn, for those of you who are new, just want to give you a little tip. Keep your work facing you and go from left to right. This will give you a nice straight edge, because if you flip it around and go right to left and turn it away from you, did you see that? It twists your yarn and it's not going to give you a nice clean look. Okay, so single crochet around the first 5 chain loop, not through the stitches, not through the chains, but around that. And I'm going to be referring to this as either the chain 5 space or the chain 5 loop throughout the work. Then we're going to create a shell into the next single crochet, and the main section and rows of the row 2, row 3, each row it's going to be a very easy repeat across. The only difference is at the beginning of the end in each row, or at the beginning and end, excuse me. Okay, so we're going to do 3 sets of 2 double crochet together clusters. All right, so you yarn over, right into, and make sure you go through both loops of that single crochet. All right, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2, just like you do in a double crochet, but you leave 2 loops on the hook. So there's the first leg of one, yarn over, all back in the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, you're left with 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. So this is your crochet 2 together cluster. By pulling through all 3, this creates 1 stitch that makes up both those pieces. We're going to do 3 of these, and you chain 1 after the first set and after the second set only. Not before, at the beginning, not at the end. It's the only time you chain 1. Yarn over, these are all 3 back into the very same stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2, repeat that, yarn over, back into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, go through all 3. Now we are putting in our second chain 1, which is before and after that middle cluster. So the third one, yarn over, all back into that same single crochet, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, back into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through all 3, and these chains from the previous row do tend to look like they are part of this because the way it works up and pulls up, but just make sure that you have 3 of these, because as you're moving along, this is an easy pattern, not anything you have to keep super track of, but to me this was something that was easy to miss one of these once you kind of get humming along. So just make sure you have 3 in there. Alright, now this is a chain 5 space, which is right next to the set of clusters, and it does appear to shorten up a little bit because of the width of the set of 3 clusters overlaps a bit. You can push those aside if you want to. It isn't necessary though, but just to let you know, this is your chain 5 loop, and then the next step is we're just going to simply single crochet directly around that. You chain 5, skip the next single crochet, and go right over the next chain 5 loop, single crochet around that. And now we're going to repeat this pattern all the way across, and you go right back into another cluster, set of 3. There's part 2 of the first one, go through all 3, chain 1, through 2 loops, yarn over, back in, through 2 loops, yarn over, go through all 3, chain 1, do your third, yarn over, all back into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, back into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over through 2, yarn over through all 3, then you single crochet around that very next chain 5 space next to your cluster, chain 5, then single crochet around the next chain 5 space. Okay, so what we're doing all the way across is we have a cluster with a single crochet before and after right next to it in each of these chain 5 spaces or loops. Then you chain 5, and then again single crochet, cluster, single crochet, chain 5, and you jump over the next chain 5. So you're alternating your clusters separated by a chain 5. So you remember I said every other, so you skip this single crochet and you're putting a chain 5 space in it instead, which is the same stitch count as your 3 double crochet clusters, which 1 stitch per, right, and separated by these 2 chain spaces. So that gives you 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I will hope that makes sense. I will finish this with you since I'm almost to the end. I'll show you what we do when we turn. So since I chained 5 and single crocheted into this chain 5 loop, now I place another cluster. Okay, I better close this. Chain 1, chain 1, single crochet in that chain around that chain 5 loop right next to the cluster, chain 5 again, single crochet around the next chain 5 space. Now my very last cluster, and then in this last, around this last chain, go ahead and do the last single crochet. Now you chain 2, and there is, this is a single crochet at the very end, and you're going to triple crochet into that single crochet. So wrap your yarn around twice, and then triple crochet. Make sure you go through both loops. Here we go. Now here is what the work looks like so far. I hope you like this lighter background. Did you notice I switched it up instead of the lavender? I thought it might be a little dark and detracting at times, and hopefully this light helps the work show up without being too light. Okay, so now chain 1 and turn, and you single crochet into the single crochet, and now we're going to be doing a series of chain 5s and single crochets all the way across. Super easy. 2, 3, 4, 5, chain 5, right? Now single crochet into the top, the middle cluster, through both loops, and because we're working on the inside or the wrong side now, it's you have to turn it a little bit to see those stitches. They're there. You can always push the yarn forward a little bit if that helps, but it's easy to see because it's the very center. It's your highest point. That is the top. Make sure you don't put it into that chain 1 that came before and after, always into the very top center. Now this is all you're going to do. We're going to chain 5 again, and single crochet around the next chain 5 loop, the one that corresponds with the skipped single crochet below. Chain 5, and again single crochet into the top of the center cluster. Getting those 2 stitches and try not to catch any from the stitch next to that. Chain 5 and single crochet around the next chain 5 loop. That's all we're doing all the way across, and we're setting up the row to repeat the cluster. So the cluster is row 2, the series of your chain 5s and single crochets is row 3. So we're repeating rows 2, row 3, row 2, row 3. That is it, all the way back. All the way, I mean, that's all we're doing. So you chain 5, single crochet into the top of the cluster, chain 5, single crochet right around that chain 5 loop, all the way across. So we'll go ahead and finish and show you what we do at the end. Okay, at the end, chain 5, and then now you're going to single crochet around the chain 6 loop of the previous row. Now we're going to chain up 6 again, turn the work, and skip all the way over this time, and cluster into the single crochet. So we're just, now it's going to be much easier, easy to see, because we're stacking cluster on top of cluster. I lost my yarn down there, took a dive. And again, single crochet around the chain 5 loop right next to the cluster, and you got it. Chain 5, jump over to the next chain 5 space and single crochet around that, and then now you see, and you cluster right above the cluster again into that single crochet. Make sure, as always, you go through both of those loops. Getting hung up. Hang on. A little more yarnage there. Okay. Single crochet around that very next chain 5 loop next to the cluster, and there we go again, chaining 5, single crochet, skip over right around the next chain 5 loop, cluster, single crochet right next to the cluster, chain 5, jump over there, and then just as we did before, when you get to the end, oops, two, three, four, five, single crochet around the next chain 5 loop, and last cluster here. And then in this next chain 5 space, go ahead, single crochet around that. And now this is where we do the chain 2, and then triple crochet into that very last single crochet at the end. And if you have trouble seeing this as you're working, when you're making the single crochet in the previous row, you can take a stitch marker and you know, put it through there just to make it a little bit easier to see where you're going to need to put your work. You can do that. That's easy enough. You know, do what works for you. Do what you have to make it easy on yourself. Why not? Okay, so then now, so just remember, and this is where you might want to make a note. So again, to recap, row 2, your cluster row, you begin with the chain 6, you jump right over to the cluster, you cluster on top of a cluster into that single crochet. At the end, when you finish your last single crochet into the chain 5 space, you chain 2, triple crochet into the single crochet. On row 3, which is your series of chain 5s and single crochets, you begin with, you chain 1 and turn. You're going to single crochet into the single crochet, so it gives you that good base. And then now all you do is you chain 5. And again, you single crochet into the top, both those stitches of your cluster, chain 5, single crochet around the next chain 5 loop, chain 5, single crochet into the top of the cluster, chain 5, single crochet around the chain 5 loop. That's all you do at the end. And then so row 3, at the beginning you chain 1 and turn, single crochet into the single crochet, chain 5, single crochet into the top of the cluster, chain 5, single crochet around the chain 5 loop. Repeat that all the way across. And after you do your last single crochet into the top of this cluster, you finish off by chaining 5, and then you do your last single crochet around the chain 6 loop from the cluster round. And then again, just like we did here, you chain 6, turn your work, and then you jump back right into, you will have a single crochet here, right, with your chains as you finish this row. You just jump right back into that single crochet, cluster on top of a cluster. So this is all you do, my friends, back and forth until the length that you like. And I went approximately 31 inches, yes I did, and I did 26 shells, which is you know, it's a repeat of the 2 rows to equal each sequence. So I did 26 shells, 31 inches, and end on row 3, end on this row with the chain 5 single crochet, chain 5 single crochet. So that's where you want to finish up. And the reason I made mine so long, well, I'm long-waisted and I'm kind of tallish, so I wanted enough coverage to go all the way down my back and a little bit like below my hip area. And also because of the construction of a shrug, when we put our arms together, it does tend to shrink and pull the height. You know, it pulls it up a bit, so you do lose some of that coverage, some of the length from your neck to waist. So that's why I add a little bit extra, but I also know I'm adding on a border, so that's going to add back in some length. So keep that in mind. So I wanted to give you the measurements on mine, tell you a little bit about what I did, so you might help you decide and what you are going to do with yours. So have fun working this up, and I will meet you back. I have finished mine, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to connect it together and then add the border. Fun stuff. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, so I have gotten to that length that I wanted when I've finished all of my rows. When you come to the end, and after you have single crocheted into the top of your center cluster in your last set, go ahead and chain 5 again, just as you've done in all your previous rows. Single crochet around your last, that's the chain 6 loop, and now we are going to cut your yarn, fasten off.